I talk with a lot of anxious women, and more often than not, what I hear is how overwhelmed they feel. They know that their schedules are too full, they know their brains are too full, but they have no idea what to do about it or what's causing it. Trying to balance work and home responsibilities, keep everything running smoothly and everybody happy, then to do it perfectly is emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausting. So I created a short 5-question quiz to help you get to the bottom of why you feel so overwhelmed and to give you some solutions to help you feel less stressed and anxious and more confident. Because when you know what you're doing that's causing you to stress, you can swap habits to create more space for yourself to rest and relax. Resting and relaxing makes it easier to think clearly, to work efficiently, and to still have time for yourself to go do the stuff you've been wanting to do. And wouldn't it feel amazing to be confident, to feel calm, and to be able to go have fun again? I mean, I think so. You can take that quiz using the link in the podcast show notes and have a very first step forward out of overwhelm in less than 5 minutes. Welcome to the More Than Anxiety podcast. I'm Megan DeVito, and I help ambitious women break out of the anxiety cycle that keeps them frustrated and stuck. Get ready for a lighthearted approach that will change what you think, how you feel, and what you believe about yourself. This podcast is full of simple steps, a lot of truth talk, and inspiration to take action so you walk away feeling confident, calm, and ready to live. Let's get to it. Welcome to episode 123 of the More Than Anxiety podcast. This week, you get to hear from Sav Holmes. Sav is a high endurance athlete. And by high endurance, I don't mean that she runs marathons. I mean, she runs like 2 marathons at the same time. Really, really big races. And she does it with a lot of mindset work. If she can run these races and manage her mind, I promise you that you can learn so much from her about how you can manage your mind at work and at home, be successful, and have fun doing it. So, Sav, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm Sav. I'm 26 as of 2 days ago.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, little baby over here. So I've been in the athletic world for quite a long time. Several years ago, I decided to chase the pro card, and that's kind of been the pursuit ever since. I specialize in triathlon and then ultra endurance. So as you can imagine with ultra endurance, it's ultra long distances and a ton of time. So that has been my primary focus. And then when I'm not doing athletics, which is rare, full time in marketing and digital. So I have the flexibility to work from home, but it's a full-time training schedule and a full-time job all at once.
Yeah. Okay. So you have exactly what people need, because first of all, I've always said, like, if I'm running, probably someone's going to try and kill me, like, help me. but I get it. I mean, so you tell me about ultra long as opposed to like a regular triathlon. First of all, school me on what you do.
Yeah, so ultra distances covers anything above a marathon, which is 42 kilometers. So usually we're looking at 50K plus. I'm in Canada, so I calculate everything in kilometers.
That's okay.
Yeah, so that would be the primary distance, and that's exclusively for running. In the triathlon, I specialize in like the 70.3. So it's a half Ironman distance. So you're looking at like a 2.5, I think, kilometer swim. You've got a 90K bike and then a half marathon. So I'm simultaneously training 3 disciplines, the swim, bike, run, obviously incorporating strength and then mobility into there as well. And then I have kind of a unique training program that incorporates a lot more running than the typical triathlete would have, just because my passion is really in those long distance running races.
Yeah. So out of the 3, swim, bike, run, you like the running the best, right?
I do.
Right or no?
It's great. Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Good deal. I raced swimmers. So I'm like, okay, yeah. I've always joked and said that, like, if anybody asks me ever to do the triathlon, I'm like, sign me up for the swim part, but the rest is on you. So I like this. Okay. But that has to take a lot. First of all, I mean, I have so many things I want to talk to you about now, like mindset, because let's just start there. Tell me what you have to be thinking, first of all, to be able to run that far. Like I mean, first, what are you thinking about? Second of all, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I think the beauty of the ultra distance and why I gravitate to it is because it actually pushes you into a state of meditation. And the goal really when I'm out there is to shut the mind off. And the beauty of like ultra distances is even in a race format, you eventually end up by yourself. There's just no way you're going to be paced perfectly with anyone. And my objective while I'm out there is really, how do I silence the mind? Because there comes a point where the body is just so aggravated, regardless of how much training you do. You can't really train your feet to not blister. You can't train your hips to not get tight. Like there's just inevitable parts of you that are going to start breaking down. And the objective I have when I'm out there is really to silence the mind, tune into the body, and just allow myself to go. If I get to a place of excruciating pain or just that point of when the mind starts to speak and gets very voluminous or maybe even dark, it's just affirmation really, and just constantly, your knee hurts. Okay, well, my calves are still strong. Or your traps get sore. It's like, okay, well, my back is still feeling good. So it's that focus on what is going well and hoping that by applying your mind to that, it expands it. And it ultimately does.
Yeah, this is so important. And I feel like there's going to be 1,000 mic drops in this episode already. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Okay. So I think, first of all, you've just mystified people by the fact that you said that you can silence your mind, because so many times, especially for people who are anxious, you know how it gets. Like your body hurts and your brain starts, I like to explain it as it starts to create stories to explain why you feel the way you are. So tell me more about this. Tell me more about how do you get to that meditative place? Because I think a lot of times people will think, oh, meditation, that's where you close your eyes and you hum and you think about your breathing. How is it when you're running? How do you do that?
That's a great question. I think there's multiple systems, and it really depends on the state that I'm coming into, because I think there is a point where the emotion that's overriding is fear. There can also be moments where the dominant emotion is pain, or maybe it's just frustration, or even boredom. Like I'm throwing boredom in because like that actually makes you anxious. You start your line at 5K and you're like, I'm out here for another 9-10 hours. That can be extremely like provoking for anxiety. So I think the big thing is just allowing myself to come into the run, invite those emotions, don't fight them, just let them come in. And then as they come in, figure out what the best process is. A lot of times the headphones come out and it's just like, hey, listen to your feet. Sometimes it's by having other people around. Like I love to have pacers because those conversations pull me out of myself. They enable me to be able to focus on something a little bit, like not just my pain, not just my pace. Sometimes I do. I break it down. That's another really huge component of ultra running. You do not get to the start line thinking about the 50 or 100 or 150 kilometers ahead of you. Like I'm running the 5K and this is what I'm focused on. I'm running the next 10K and this is what I'm focused on. So there is that attunement with your body of like, I'm focused on my pace, I'm focused on my breath, I'm focused on my posture. There's also periods of time where I actually dedicate like a period of the run to different things in my life. So maybe it's the next 5K, I'm focused on gratitude for the people around me. And I just allow myself to think about that. So like there's a lot of different ways, but I think the key is breaking it down, getting tuned into like where you are. Sometimes it's distraction, but sometimes it really is like eventually your mind tires. And that's the beauty of ultra sports is your body is exhausted and it eventually just surrenders and you just get to that beautiful space.
Yeah. So when it surrenders, when your body surrenders, because I'm not a runner, is that the runner high, or is that just like, okay, we're just going to do this and she's just going to keep going?
That's a great question. I have like many different interpretations of what the runner's high ultimately is.
I think it's a myth, but go on.
Yeah, that's so everyone says, and I don't blame you for thinking that because my theory too is the runner's high always comes after the wall. So there's like this inevitable dip, and when it gets dark, I actually get stoked because I'm like, oh, I'm about to hit it.
Ooh, good.
Yeah, so I would say like the runner's high is definitely like that endorphin influx that you inevitably get. But I think for me, the runner's high is that state of just like, it's completely neutral. I don't know. It's like the silence of all emotion, and you're just like moving, but you're not even really aware that you're moving. You're not trying to move. It's like your body's just in motion and you're going along for the ride.
Yeah, this is so good. So when I am coaching someone, a lot of times we talk about circumstances. And one of the things I'm always like, your circumstance, even though you have a lot of emotions about it, they're always neutral, right? Like if you told me I had to go run a 75K, I would be like, absolutely not. Like never, ever, ever, ever. Like I have thoughts, but it just to bring that back to what we talk about so often, whether it's I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling bored. Boredom is so huge. Like we cannot. I just saw a post on Instagram or Threads the other day about how we are so terrible at tolerating boredom now because we haven't been bored in years. We just scroll our boredom away. So for you to even bring up the fact that boredom is such a difficult emotion in there, I think that's really important. So for people who are constantly grabbing their phone or doing something else, to be able to sit in that boredom and just to say this is neutral. It means nothing. The fact that your hips hurt and all of that. So when you feel that pain, because I'm assuming there's a lot of pain at some point when you're running, what do you do to make that neutral?
That's a great question. I think it's tough as an athlete because there's a part of you that wants to take care of your body. There's another part of you that's like, I gotta get across the finish line. And so you gotta stifle stuff. But I would say when that pain comes up, it's like acknowledge and then move on. Because if you sit in that entire run and you're just focused on that, it amplifies. I just ran like 50K for my birthday with a bunch of buddies. And it was so funny, 5K in. It was very spontaneous. Like we left at 3:00 in the afternoon. I just like chucked some shoes on and headed out and fueled the whole thing with like potato chips. It was horrible, but it was a really good time. And 5K in, I was like, oh, I forgot to bandage my feet. And I could already feel the blister and it was like stinging. Anyways, but I just was like, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to think about it. And I kept focusing on like, where can I put my stride to reduce kind of that friction on that area? And as I focused on that and I focused on like, well, I'm still able to run, like it's a little stingy, but like whatever. And then, when I took my shoes off, it was like disgusting. It was horrible. And everyone was shocked that we were able to do it. But ultimately, I think it really is a matter of like where your energy is focused on, because you just cannot feed those thoughts. You can't feed those pain. If it's something where I feel like for tight hips, that's a really frequent issue I have, I'll stop to address it to the point of like do some hip cars or maybe like do some stretches real quick mid-run. But there comes a point where you got to fixate on where you want to go more than like where you are. So,
yeah. This is such a good analogy for people. I told you before we started recording that so many people who are listening, I feel like are trying to balance this job, which I mean, obviously you're doing too, right? You said you've got working mostly remote, doing a lot of marketing and doing all that, but you're also balancing this whole potential like professional athlete, right?
Yeah.
And that pause and being able to say, okay, being able to decide where your focus goes. How do you balance those two things? Like, how do you balance training to be this professional athlete, but also I've got this career over here and I'm trying to balance my mind anyway. Like there's so much that goes into that I think that for the people who are listening, who are trying to balance whether it's overwhelming work responsibilities and what's happening at home, what do you do that works for you?
It's a great question. I think, I structure time, not content. So I always make sure that it's structured and it's put in the calendar. I think for some reason we only take like our work seriously. It's like I'm going to show up and I got to be in this time, and like that's not negotiable. I treat my recovery and kind of those like mental recharges as non-negotiables as well. So if they're in the calendar, they don't get moved. Even if I want to sleep in or I want to like go out and socialize, if I've scheduled, and for me, it's like, it's journaling. Like that's kind of the thing that grounds me, gets me back into my good space, or like a good hike. So when that's in the calendar, that doesn't get moved. I think part of the thing too is I make a very cautious effort to what's the word here? Like enter the space for training, and then I come back to work. And my mindset shifts massively in between those things. So when I'm in training, it's like quite aggressive, and I'm able to put a ton of energy into it, and it can be very like intense. When I come back into work, it's settled in. Like it's like, okay, I'm now in work mode. And I think just realizing that different emotions are going to be beneficial in different spaces is really powerful as well. But ultimately, just when training's in the schedule, it's not negotiable. I treat it just like a job. So if it says like I got to be at the pool by noon, and I have the flexibility of maybe getting to do that midday or something, but yeah, ultimately, I don't know if I'm answering this right.
No, I think you are. I think you are, because what kind of pinged in my head was you schedule in recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal, because recovery for you is certainly not going to look the same as recovery for, somebody that's not an athlete. But I think that for people who don't know what recovery is in terms of sports, explain a little bit about that, because I think there's a really good parallel here for people, whether you want to call it self-care or recovery or anything else. The fact that it's scheduled in means it's important. Why?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, recovery and rest kind of get like introduced a lot. When I'm in recovery mode, it's not necessarily like I'm sleeping or I'm having a nap. It's about really recharging your soul, because there's kind of this abuse that athletes put on themselves where it is you're not paying attention. You got to like cancel out the fear. You got to cancel out the doubt. It's really important that you also take time to invite those emotions to come back up and be like, why was I frustrated in my practice today? Why was this overwhelming? And my theory with everything, I call it like, it's kind of used quite frequently in the athletic world, the theory of thirds. So the third of the time, you're just in a plateau, you're going through things. It's not really a high, but it's not a low. It's just very neutral. A third of the time, whether in practices, but I think career would be a similar thing. You're on the highs. You're like hitting the PRs. You're crushing new goals. It's exciting. And a third of the times you're in the low, and you feel like you can't hit the targets, and you feel frustrated. You feel tired. You feel overwhelmed. None of those things are bad, but it's just the ratio. And so, especially with my coach, like, I ensure that all my practices are meeting that. And if we're having so many that are just like highs, I'm not working hard enough. And if I have too many lows, we're too challenged. And so I think I spend a lot of time in that recovery mode, analyzing that and making sure that's in a really good ratio. So recovery really for me is like analyzing what I'm doing, what's working, what's not working, and also just taking time to not be in a stressful state. Like it's really easy to get stuck in that fight or flight mode when you're in an intense career or an intense athletic pursuit, and just going to a space where the watch is off. I'm not looking at my heart rate. I'm not checking anything. It's like stats are gone. I'm just tuned in. That's really important.
Yeah. And stepping away. And so being able to like, yes, I am an athlete. Yes, I do these things. But right now I'm the girl on the couch watching the movie.
Absolutely.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
I love that. So do you use the same rule of thirds when you look at your business or your job?
I do. Yeah, I do. Because I think it applies in all like sectors of life, really. Because if you show up for work and you never feel challenged, you would feel very complacent and probably bored. So when I see those experiences, when I have those emotions of like, wow, this is really tough, it doesn't freak me out anymore, because I'm like, oh, this is actually a positive thing. And I think just reframing, right? Like we know that anxiety and like excitement release the same three chemicals. Right. So it's all about how you frame it. And I think the thing athletics has taught me so much is like that challenge is something to look forward to and appreciate, because you recognize it as a form of self-improvement.
Yeah. And that you took the time to go back. This is a big one. And I think everybody needs to hear this twice, maybe more than twice, but going back to revisit the emotions that you didn't like. We have such an intolerance to anything that's not fast enough or that is uncomfortable. Like, God, don't make me feel uncomfortable. I don't think I can handle it. And you are out there doing it on purpose. And then after you do it on purpose, you're like, come back, let's do it again.
Yeah. 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 Self-inventory is key, right? Because I think too, something that's really common is when something doesn't go our way, we go into self-sabotage mode. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, why couldn't I show up? Why couldn't I meet the targets that I had set for myself? When you go into kind of like a self-evaluation after any experience in your life, so a training session or a big meeting or a job interview or something like that, basically what you're doing is enabling yourself to recognize all the circumstances. What else was at play and what else was contributing to that day? Because it isn't always an issue. Dude, it's like, oh yeah, I slept 4 hours before a training session. Maybe that's why it was crappy. I'm not a horrible athlete. It just was this. And I think it takes some of like the pressure off to always be operating on this state of perfection.
Yeah. And we do. We're so mean to ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine being in a situation where I was putting myself out there to like the physical extreme that you are and being able to function at all. If you were like, God, you're a crappy runner. I can't believe that you can't do this today. Who were you to forget your Band-Aid on your foot? Like now you're going to have blisters. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a big deal.
It's super interesting.
Yeah. So what is the hardest part? Because what I think would be the hardest part, I'm guessing is probably not the hardest part.
Yeah.
The hardest part
of the athletics or the balancing or
just both. Both. Yeah. What's the hardest part of the athletics portion? But what's the hardest part about the balance?
Yeah. The hardest part about the athletics portion, it's really that's a good question. I'm thinking of like there's so many things that are hard when you're in the performance mode. Like the comparisons are obviously quite difficult when I'm racing, but not when I'm training. I think when I'm training, it's having the effort being respected when it's not congratulated. So it's easy to receive respect from your community and for them to kind of get behind the sacrifice that's demanded of this pursuit when you've got like a stash of medals and you're on the podium. But the process of going from good to great and actually becoming like a world champion, that's a massive leap, and it's a quiet one. It's done in solitude and it's done without all the accolades. And so a lot of people just feel like there's a lot of judgment, right? Because you're saying no and you're placing these boundaries, but you actually have no evidence for why you're doing it yet. So that's difficult on the athletic side. It's just kind of dealing with all the moving parts. I find my work one of the easiest things because my boss is also a triathlete, so he understands a lot of what's going on. But the community aspect is probably the most difficult, which kind of segues into the balance portion. I think what's really difficult is when you're in athletics, everything is intense and you become very defensive about making sure the conditions are right because you want to show up ready and you want to be prepared and you want to be in a good headspace. And it can be really easy to cut everything out and just wrap yourself in bubble wrap and be like, now I can train perfectly. That's not realistic. It's like you've got family visiting in town. You have a work party that you have to attend. There's so much that you have to come out with. And I think my biggest thing is communicating that effectively so that people recognize that it's not them. It's like, this is just what I'm pursuing. So the balance part is probably more to the community than to my job. And also shifting my attitude because athletic Sav would not do very well in a community because it's like there's no empathy, there's no like you're just intense. So making that shift of like, okay, now I'm in this person, that's really important to make actually, but it's difficult.
Yeah. And thank you for admitting that it's difficult because I think so often we can get stuck in one energy, whether you want to call it like athletic energy or masculine energy or, like go energy, whatever it is, we all have two sides of that energy. Everybody's got feminine energy. Everybody's got masculine energy. But if you're putting all of your focus into that one energy to be able to say, oh, wait, it's time for me to switch it over. Because if I go into this group with the same, like, I am going to do this thing.
Yeah.
It can put a lot of stress on you, but also on the people you're working with, because they may be living their life in this whole community energy, which my guess is not quite as like intense as athletic energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Recognizing the need for that shift is key. And then just also like providing segues. I used to be really notorious for going straight from a training session and then like driving out to a social event. And I learned that I actually had to come down. Like I need to go for a walk, like a 20-minute walk, or I need to spend a few minutes listening to music or whatever it was to just kind of ground me again.
Yeah.
And then I can go out and kind of show up in that way, in that capacity.
You have amazing insight and balance. Like you are talking to me like you are like some wise, like 80-year-old sage. And I'm like, I'm 26. What the heck is happening right now?
Yeah, a lot of time in the head. It's ultra running.
Yeah, but really, I mean, for most people who spend that much time in their head, it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got off the call with somebody. I was like, here's the problem. We think way too much. Right? Like thinking, I mean, especially where we are right now, where we can learn anything. All we have to do is pull up our phone. We know too much. We think too much. And for you to have huge blocks of time where you can very easily get into your head, that's amazing.
Yeah. I think too, it also speaks volumes to like the necessity of filling your mind with positive things because it's like you're going to go to default mode when your body's tired and you start to break down. And so if you have just this entire landscape of just positive thoughts, good messages, when you go to that space, it's a beautiful space to be like, I don't actually fear where my mind goes in ultra running because it's a massive influx. It's like the music I listen to, I'm super picky about it. The books that I read, super picky about it. And I think if you become very selective about what you allow to enter your mind, you start to actually enjoy spending time in it.
That is perfect. Like perfect, because we take it all in. Oh, just a little bit of this, but I don't know why I feel so bad. And I'm like, I do. I know why you feel bad. Like,
yeah.
This is why you feel bad. I'm just going to tell you, you don't need to read that. And we do it with things like the news, or we do it with social media, or we do it with, what so-and-so said at, you go out and they're like, well, they said this. I'm like, well, halt. And the fact that you can, I think that's just really good evidence for people that this is possible.
Yeah.
And so many people would say, well, I don't think it's possible for me.
Right.
What would you tell them? Like, have you ever been one of those people that like you get up in your head and you're like, whoa, that was a scary place today? Or has it always just been easy for you?
I would like to say it's been easier, but I don't know if that's just because I compare myself to we have a culture very rampant with depression and anxiety. And so maybe in some ways I feel like I've gotten off the hook easy, but at the same time, I can go through an entire, massive list of things I've very intentionally done that have made it easy. So, I actually don't think it's automatic. I think it's a choice. I think one of my biggest frustrations is like, people are like, oh, well, if I was like that, I would do that. And it's like, no, I do that. And that's why I'm like this. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. The reason you can do this is because you know the ins and outs, and it's so important. And I just, for anyone listening to this podcast, guys, you can learn this stuff. I'm not saying that you're going to go out and run like a 75-kilometer race ever, but I am saying that the mindset stuff and how to balance your life, and really the whole rule of thirds is so good. These are the things that I wish people would teach little kids. Like, your life is going to be a third amazing, a third neutral, and a third dumpster fire. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just put so much focus on the stuff that makes us feel bad because it feels so necessary to solve problems, when you are just telling everybody the God's honest truth is that you can choose where you direct your brain.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think one of the biggest shifts that I made very early on in my athletic career, because I was raised overseas, so I didn't have like a typical going through the high school route and then come into a college. Like, I came into the game quite late, and everyone says like, why could you do it? And my question is like, well, why not? Like, what does anyone else have that you don't, or that you can't eventually have or eventually develop? And I think that's the question I pose to people is like, if you genuinely want it and you're willing to put in the work, like, why not? So yeah, I'm very passionate about that.
It's so important. And it's so important. Everybody, I mean, not even, yes, but I'm just thinking like all ages. Like, I think that we try to do it when we're little kids, and then somewhere along the line, like we stop and we just stop believing that we can. But, you know, when we're little kids and we're like, and I'm going to grow up and be a astronaut or whatever they're going to be. And then somewhere along the line, they're like, nah, I can't do that. But why not?
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, and ultimately that's how I got into ultra, was I had run a marathon. And I was like, well, why can't I run more? Like, why do we just stop, you know, at these distances? So I think that's the beauty maybe of really long distance sports. It shatters the ceiling of your doubt, because if you can push your body through that, then you realize you can push your mind through it too. And then you're just invincible at that point.
That's amazing. And I remember when I was little, my dad ran marathons. He did one ultra marathon. And I remember him finishing and like throwing up and being like, that was great. And I'm like, was it?
Yeah.
Was it? Because you just threw up. Did you really like it? You see?
Yeah.
But there is something about that. And I just think it's so important for people to know that, like, if anybody can push their body to do those kinds of things, then if you are the person that's starting out and you are just like, I wish I could go for, you know, I wish I could feel calm enough in my mind to walk around the block. You really can. And actually what you're doing, like studies just show that the more that we can go out and be, you know, outside and using running as meditative. And there are apps for this, guys. Like there's like walking meditation apps and things. You guys can do this without the running part. You can do it with walking, and it's so good for you.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah. So if people want to connect with you, where do they find you? What's up? Where can they meet with you?
So Instagram's kind of my main handle right now. It's Stories of Sav on Instagram. LinkedIn would be Sav Holmes, and then my website is savathletics.com. But keep most people updated on the gram.
Yeah. What else do they need to know? Anything?
Oh, I don't know. Just freaking go out and run a marathon.
I love that. I'm going to be watching, because I'm like, she's going to be professional and it's going to be so amazing. Like, so what do you have coming up? Like, do you have big races and things coming up?
I sure do. Yeah. This year, well, obviously got broke my neck last year. This year, sorry.
We didn't even talk about that. And that is so important. Why did we not talk about that?
That's all good.
God. Yeah. And by the way, she got hit and broke her neck.
I know.
It was kind of a big deal. How did I miss that?
No, it's all good. So this year it's kind of like getting back into the water, but I mean, honestly, I qualified for Worlds like right after the accident. So hopefully we'll go into more world qualifications and then get pro carded hopefully by the fall. But yeah, we'll just be going throughout Canada and the States in the Ironman 70.3 distance, and then some marathons and some ultras as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. It's been so much fun. And you can come back anytime. I still want to hear your story about your neck.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the More Than Anxiety podcast. Before you go, be sure to subscribe and leave a review so others can easily find this resource as well. And of course, if you're ready to feel calm, to stop overthinking, and have a lot more fun, you can go to the show notes, click the link, and talk to me about coaching. I'll talk to you soon.